I just watched a movie called Die Hard Dracula. It's not good. It's a very, very bad movie. Uh, I'd never heard of this one before. This is one where I just had no idea what this was going into it. The only thing I knew about this movie and that I recognized was Bruce Glover, who is the father of Crispin Glover. He's been in a bunch of B movies. He was the villain in a James Bond movie, and he's done a bunch of that kind of stuff. I actually love his James Bond villain, by the way. It's I'm trying to remember, it's the two really formal hitmen guys. I'll put a clip of them in here.
Mother Nature's finest killer, Mr. Wint.
One is never too old to learn from a master, Mr. Kidd.
I'm Mr. Wint, but this is Mr. Kidd.
If God had wanted man to fly,
He would have given him wings, Mr. Kidd.
Anyway, he plays Van Helsing in this Dracula movie. This movie is bad on pretty much every level. The editing, the special effects, like computer special effects, are bad. The practical special effects are even worse. Like, this is some of the most lazy, like, practical effects usage you'll see in just about anything. In not just quality, but continuity, even. Particularly the Dracula special effects that they do, to, like, do up his face and stuff. It's so inconsistent. From one scene to the next, you don't know what Dracula's gonna look like. Sometimes he looks like an old, fat guy. With a bunch of wrinkles and stuff on his face. Other times he looks like a sort of old, sort of fat guy, but blue, and with less wrinkles. And sometimes he doesn't look like an old fat guy at all. He just looks like a pale guy who's trying to act as Dracula. I couldn't figure out any logic to this, because it was never consistent whether it was at night, whether it was after he drank blood, it never made sense. There was never any logical reason for this, apart from, I guess they ran out of certain kinds of makeup. I don't know. But yeah, also in the special effects department of computer stuff, there are a number of instances where anytime they needed Dracula to fly, they did this as poorly as possible. There's one sequence at the beginning where his coffin flies through a landscape and is clearly, like, superimposed on, like, just shots. And it looks really super bad. Same thing whenever he's flying and kidnapping someone, it looks horrible. So yeah, all the practical effects and special effects are bad, but that's only the surface of this movie. The writing is really weird. It tries to play itself off as a comedy, which you can't guess from, like, the posters and advertising for this thing. And it also seems like all the comedy moments are added in after the fact. Like, they're sort of awkwardly spliced in, or, like, lines are added in after the fact during, like, transitions and while people's backs are turned to try and, like, pull jokes out of it, which just is super jarring, and it doesn't work. You can't go back and make a movie funny like that. So yeah, the writing is weird in regards to trying to get the humor out of it. There's also a lot of bad acting in this, outside of Bruce Glover, who isn't good in this. He's super hammy and entertaining. The guy playing Dracula is just really boring to watch, but at least he's sort of doing his worst Dracula impression possible. Everybody else is just kind of crappy. I'm not entirely sure these people are actors.
I'm an American, and we're tough!
It's a really bad movie. Overall, there's something wrong with it. Like, the person who wrote this movie had never written other screenplays. The guy behind this, like Peter Horak, I believe, is only known for doing stunts on movies like Mystery Men and The Nutty Professor, if you want to get an idea of, what his idea of comedy is. This is his only directorial credit, only writing credit, only producing credit. This is truly a rookie trying to make a movie. It's like a step above a YouTube movie, maybe. So, yeah, this guy clearly had a grand vision for this sort of funny, cartoony Dracula thing. Sort of. As I mentioned, the humor seems like it's really added in after the fact. There's also a lot of repeated stuff. Like, at one point, after they've introduced Helsing and introduced the fact there's a vampire, and our lead character has done his things and had his girlfriend die of water skiing, and made his wish upon a meteor, and then brought someone back to life that he didn't know because he wasn't specific enough in his wishes. Yeah, I know none of that makes sense, but that's the plot. Basically, he loses his girlfriend and decides to go on a long trip to grieve. Basically backpacking in Europe to grieve over the loss of his girlfriend in a skiing accident, a water skiing accident. He wishes upon a star that a drowned girl comes back to life. Why wouldn't you be specific there? Might be a good idea. Yeah, anyway. So he goes backpacking and winds up in generic Eastern Europe somewhere. Apparently a place where there's vampires. Because Helsing is already renowned as a vampire hunter, so vampires are just an established thing. They're just a thing. Like, they exist. Any case, the main character hooks up with this brought back from the dead drowned person, who I assumed was a vampire early on, because you don't just sort of come back from the dead for no reason. But was not. I don't know. Any case, after everything's set up and we've got all the story stuff done, like we know who all of our characters are and what the conflict is, Helsing showed up to help fight the vampire, it just gets really weirdly repetitive. Helsing enlists the help of this main character guy, they come up with a list of ways to kill vampires, and then they break into Dracula's castle and are, aha, Dracula, we are here to kill you! And then they try a thing, it fails, and then they run away. And this happens 4, 5 times.
Die, Dracula! Die! Dracula!
We are going to go right back to that castle and blow the hell out of it.
Until finally they screw up to the point where they get turned into vampires and the movie ends. Because, you know, then they're just all happy as vampires, and they sing and dance together, and then the movie ends. So basically, Helsing is massively incompetent in this movie. Yeah, it's really, really bad. But basically, because it's so repetitive after you get halfway through the movie, that there's no, like, sense of urgency or pacing. It's just a series of scenes going over and over and over again. So it gets to be, you know, a drag to watch. It's like, oh, we're doing this again, or you're climbing up the castle again. Also, Dracula is woefully lacking of any kind of security system on his castle. I think they set him on fire like 3 times with bombs and flaming arrows and whatever, and they blow up his violin. I don't know. In any case, some of this stuff is played off to be funny, apparently, but it doesn't come off quite right, or quite like they want. Really, when it comes down to it, this is one of those movies where there is no aspect of the movie that is done adequately. There is nothing on par here. Whereas a lot of these movies, maybe, like, the effects are okay, or there's editing that makes sense. This doesn't have any of that. So this is definitely a worthy bottom 100 movie. I'm a little surprised it's not a little more well-known. It does have a comedic aspect, and bad comedies are more likely to be ignored. But it is not purely a comedy. It is a confused mess that isn't sure whether it's a comedy or just a straight vampire movie, and it goes back and forth. I don't think I can recommend it outside of it's almost to the level of being a spectacle, that it's worth seeing just to see that it exists. But I would actually rather recommend to go find a review or clips of it that goes into detail. It's not good. I might watch it again. This is the sort of thing I might subject my friends to, if I can convince them to sit down to watch it. But overall, it's not or definitely not a recommend for a general audience. Maybe a recommend, maybe for bad movie watchers. At least there's lots of Bruce Glover on screen, and that's, you know, that's something. So that's Die Hard Dracula for you.